Hi guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Olive, and if you have been following my journey, you do know that I got diagnosed with PCOS and endometriosis not too long ago, then went on to have surgery for both. So aside this channel being a student and a faith channel, it is also a health channel with a very big focus on PCOS and endometriosis, to be able to bring an awareness on this condition that would hopefully start conversations that can drive positive change and bring about good health outcomes. So today I tell you all about my story leading up to diagnosis and eventually surgery. There's two parts to this video. This is obviously the first part being my story and journey with endometriosis, and the second one will be on PCOS. So that's two separate videos. For those of you who do not know what endometriosis is, I will read quickly off Women's Health website. So endometriosis is often a painful disorder which tissue similar to the tissue that normally lines the inside of your uterus, which is the endometrium. It grows outside of the uterus, and endometriosis most commonly involves the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, and tissues that lines the pelvis. Very rarely, endometrial-like tissues can be found beyond the area where pelvic organs are located. So pretty much what this is saying is, just a simple breakdown to that is pretty much every month, when you have your period, obviously the lining of your uterus is shed to make way for the new baby. Now with endometriosis, what happens is that same tissue that's supposed to shed and come out as menstruation, it grows back outside of the womb. So with this tissue now being outside of the womb, going where it shouldn't be, every month when our brain releases hormones to say, hey body, like the body of a female, you now need to you now need to shed those unfertilized eggs so that period can start, and yada can happen. Obviously when those eggs are not fertilized, it sheds off. So it all starts with a signal from the brain, okay? So now when our body reacts to that to say, oh, okay, that egg hasn't been fertilized yet, we need to shed it now to make way for the new one. Now, this tissue that is outside of the womb, they also react to that trigger from the brain. And what they also start to do is they start to bleed out. But there's not really anywhere for that blood to go. So what end up happening is, you as the woman, you start to bleed internally. And this internal bleeding is, with this internal bleeding, you start to also experience pain, and you also start to experience what's it called? Scarring. Sorry, I had a mind blank. So you start to experience pain, and then you also start to experience scarring. So every month the brain releases a hormone, your body reacts to it to shed the blood off, and then this one outside of the womb also reacts to it. It's also bleeding out. There's nowhere for that blood to go. It's causing scarring, so there's a lot of scar tissues there, and you are also in pain because of that. Okay, now in my case, what that looked like was some of this bleeding that was happening outside of the womb or outside of the uterus was leaking out. So every single day of the month I was bleeding. So I'll have my normal menstruation, and I knew it was my normal menstruation because it was heavy, it was painful, I had pelvic pain, I had all the symptoms of it, the clotting and all the not so nice stuff happening. And right after that is finished, I will still continue to bleed, but not as heavy. So then I knew that was not my normal menstruation. So in this case, now that I know what I know, is that because there was nowhere for that blood to go and I was bleeding internally, some of that blood obviously was leaking out, and hence why I was bleeding along the way. And so obviously with losing that amount of blood, your blood level or my hemoglobin level was obviously really low, and that also meant that I was severely anemic. So my story with endometriosis pretty much started as a 15-year-old, I think, or 14 or 15-year-old, living in Ghana, West Africa. Obviously, this was a reproductive age for me. I had only just started experiencing or having my menstruation the year prior. So I think I was about 13 when I started having my menses. So at 14 or 15, I woke up one night with really, really bad abdominal pain. I could not walk. I was just crouching over. It was so painful. This pain kept getting worse and worse. It was sharp. It was piercing. It was horrible, pretty much. So my mom got a taxi and they rushed me straight to the hospital. Took me to a private hospital. I was hospitalized, and yeah, my tummy area was really turned up. Obviously sore and everything. And the doctors ran all sorts of tests and scans and everything, ultrasounds, everything, to try and find out what was happening or what was triggering my pain. But they could not find the exact cause of it. And eventually they turned to surgery. They said to my mom, hey, we need to operate on your daughter. We can tell that there's something definitely going on her tummy, like in her tummy area. It might have to do with her reproductive organs. We're not too sure, but we need to cut her open to be able to know what is happening. Now, my mom was not having any of that. She was like, no way, that's not happening. I'm not going to let you do that. So, originally, I am from Sierra Leone, born in Sierra Leone, but we left Sierra Leone to Ghana because of the civil war that was happening. So, my mom said to this doctor that I'm not going to allow you to use my daughter as try and error if you cannot tell me exactly what is wrong with her or what you're looking for when you cut her open. And she made this statement saying, I did not flee or run away from war with my kids only to come in exile and lose one of my kids in exile. It's not happening. So my mom refused to allow the surgery happen, and she discharged me from that hospital, and she took me to another hospital, which was also a private hospital. We had a normal doctor, everyday doctor, a GP, as we'll say here, in the hospital. So she went straight there, and he saw me. He was like, oh, Erica, what's wrong with? See, I was in a wheelchair. And mom started to explain the story to him, and then they started running their own tests and everything. Obviously, he knew me. He treated me. He treated my entire family as well. So he ran all sorts of tests as well. At this point, I'm losing so much blood as well. I'm so anemic. I'm not eating. I'm severely dehydrated. I was having drips for fluid as well. I was so weak. I was really weak. So they ran all sorts of tests, and eventually they came to the same conclusion that they will need to try and operate to find out what's going on in my abdominal cavity. Now, with endometriosis, what I know now about it, sometimes if it cannot be seen via ultrasound, sometimes they actually do need to cut you open to be able to know that that's what it was. But I totally understand why my mom refused, and I wouldn't have, and I'm happy she didn't. So, because I believe surgery for most people is the only way for doctors to be able to know that for a fact, yes, you do have endometriosis. So after my mom refused, I was told that my mom and I were told that I'll never be able to have kids because whatever's going on is with my reproductive organs, and we're not able to have that operation to find out the exact cause or what's happening, or if I don't will be able to rectify it. So I will not be able to have kids. My mom signed this paperwork that should I die or anything happen to me, they're going to hold her responsible and blah blah blah. It was scary. So we left the hospital, and at this point we actually just attributed it to something spiritual. So I said to my mom that I wanted to go see a pastor. This is a pastor that I've loved my whole life. I've watched him on TV. If you're from Ghana, you know him, Ajina Sari. So mom then called a taxi from Tema to Accra, put me in it. We went to see Ajina Sari, and he prayed for me that day, and it was a very short prayer. And I walked out of there. For the very first time I was able to have a juice. So I believe my healing process started then. I believe I was healed. But fast forward to the age of 17 turning 18, my family and I, we relocated to Australia. And while in Australia, I found out that I was pregnant as a teen. I was shocked, I was confused, I was feeling lost, but I was also really happy, because here's the case where doctors have actually said that I cannot have a kid, but I'm here, I'm pregnant. I'm not saying go have a baby in teenage years. Please don't do it. No, that's not what I'm saying, okay? So after my son was born, I noticed that my period was a lot more heavier with big clotting. My hair also started to thin out and it also started to fall off. I went to my GP here in Australia to speak to them about this, and then they recommended that I go on the pill because it was probably something hormonal. So they said go on the pill and that will help to regulate your period. So I said okay. So they put me on the pill, but the pill was not helping. So eventually they put me on implant, but the implant was making me spot bleed or bleed every single day. So there was no day I was not bleeding, which was really uncomfortable. So I got off that as well. And with the implant as well, I also noticed that within this time as well, my skin was starting to get more oily. So I was having really oily skin, and I was starting to have acne as well. So I just got off it, and eventually I got off both completely because neither of them were helping my symptoms. And if anything at all, I felt like my symptoms was just getting worse. So that happened, and I just continued on to live my life. I was living normal life, and I was just bearing, with the pain of, having my period being heavy, and it was really uncomfortable. I was having the abdominal pain, I was having pelvic pain, I was having all these different things. And I remember saying to my mom, I really don't like seeing my period. And my mom found it very funny. She found it hilarious because as a kid growing up, and even till today, I am someone who do not find wounds or blood gross or clotting gross. I actually want to be in there, oh my gosh, what's this, what's that, clean it up, even the smell of it, So she was like, that's weird for someone who likes to play with blood or play with clothing, not like seeing their period. But I didn't go into it to explain to her that I'm really feeling this way every month. So because I just at that point actually I thought it was normal female hormone stuff. So as time went on, I started to have really bad breakouts, I would have migraines. I'll also have really sharp pain when I'm trying to do a poop, more like a contraction like pain. I would have lower back pain, and I started to also have like blind spots in my vision. Sometimes I'll have it together with a headache. Sometimes after it's cleared and I start to see properly, that headache will come about. I was always tired, always weak. I'll wake up in the morning and I'm tired. Sleep for 12 hours, I wake up, I'm tired. I went back to my GP because I thought, I'm losing my hair, my period is all over the place, this is happening, that is happening, maybe something to do with my thyroid. So I had a chat with her and she was like, no, I think it's in your head. I think you're fine, Olive. Maybe you're just over processing these things, because we go through it as women, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay. Again, continue living my life. Fast forward to my late 20s. I got married and my husband and I started trying for a kid. So we got married in 2017. So my husband and I started trying for a baby about a year or so later, and that was when the miscarriages started to happen. There was a lot of difficulty in trying to conceive. At a point I actually thought maybe I'm barren, or maybe God only blessed me with just one kid, and I started having a conversation with my husband for us to look at the possibility of adopting, or I was thinking about all the worst case scenarios, but I thank God that I married a man who is a man of faith, and he just used the word of God to uplift my spirit and rebuke me as well. So that happened, but thank God, God is gracious. I ended up falling pregnant in 2020 and my daughter was born. After my daughter was born in 2020, it felt like the pain for my early teen years or 14, 15 years old kind of returned during my menses. I would have really, really bad, excruciating, painful periods where they felt like they were contraction pain. And I've always described this pain, for me, having been through childbirth, I've always said it's worse than labor or childbirth. Because I'm having these contractions that are constant, and I'm having it go through to my lower back, I'm having it through to my anus, my entire body is on fire, like I can't even explain it. And with labor, you have a period where the contractions come and then they go, and you can sleep as a woman, or you do other things, then they come again with its intensity. With endometriosis, guys, it stays. It goes nowhere. There's absolutely Panadol or Nurofen can do for you. I'll take Panadol, I'll take Nurofen. And I remember being on my clinical placement because I was trying to finish up my clinical placement. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to keep it going because my daughter was born in 2020, took some time off. 2020 when I went back to school, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try and power through this because we've had COVID. It's been so hard to get clinical placement. So for me to not be able to have my accumulated hours that I need or set hours I need to be able to graduate, I cannot afford that. So I thought I'll power through this. And you know, there are times even on the ward where nurses my RNs had to, you know, give me aspirin and things to help with that inflammation and with that pain that I was experiencing or feeling. Now, at the start of this year, so obviously I'm done with uni, I've graduated, you know, I'm not stressed out about anything else because I put my focus all on finishing uni. I didn't focus on all the pain and everything else that was happening with me. At the start of this year, I'm done, I'm graduated now, and I started to pay a bit more attention. Obviously, my pain is so much, I'm gaining weight, I'm losing more hair, I'm getting more facial hair, I've got a lot of hair on my body. And I realized that I was bleeding every single day of the month, every day. Now, it was different. It was different in the sense that I will have my normal period. I knew it was my normal period because it was very heavy. I had pelvic pain, I had back pain, I had clotting, and it was just horrible. And after that period ends, pretty much a day or two later, I'll continue to bleed again. But this time there is no pain. There's no clotting. The smell was different. That's another thing as well. The smell, very different. The color was different. And I monitored this for 3 months and I was really, really concerned. So I spoke to my husband about it. And he said, no, you did not just start bleeding every day now. It started last year. I said, really? And he goes, yeah, you didn't notice? You're always bleeding constantly. Obviously, this affected my sex life or our sex life. So I said, no, this is a problem. You know, first it's with all of the other symptoms going on, all the problems happening, and then it's been this hair loss that started when, after I had my son, which I never experienced hair loss up until that time. And I'm gaining weight that I'm trying so hard to lose, and looks like nothing that I do helps. And now I'm bleeding every day of the month. I said, So I went to see my GP again. Like, this is a different GP now because we've moved to a different state. And she decided to run all sorts of tests on me, check my thyroid, check everything. So my thyroid levels were okay. They found that my iron levels were really low, severely low. I had to have infusions 2 weeks apart, a week apart, sorry. My vitamin D level was down, my hemoglobin level, my blood level down. She was literally even surprised how I was going on. And there were times where, I wouldn't kid you, I have felt so nauseous. I felt like I'm going to pass out. Times where I've literally had to grab a chair to sit down, you know, or just hold on to something because I know I'm going to pass out, you know, like blackouts and things. I was severely anemic. So she ran some tests as well, ultrasounds and all these things on me. And on one of the ultrasounds, so the transvaginal one, they found that there was follicles sitting on my ovary. So she said, you know what, we'll repeat the test again 6 weeks after your menses, because by then I was still on my menstruation. So I said, okay, we'll repeat it after 6 weeks. So after 6 weeks, we repeated it, and now there were two ovaries sitting on my, 2 follicles sitting on my ovaries. So she was like, no, there's definitely something there, because it looks like it's not just these 2, there's more of it. And should I also just say, when she was running this test as well, we did do a bowel one, and 2 of those ones with the feces returned positive with blood, but we weren't quite sure whether or not it was going to be colon cancer, or whether or not it was the fact that I was bleeding every day. So because of that constant bleed, that also meant that I had blood in my stool. So just saying that as well. So she referred me to go see a gynecologist, and the gynae did run heroin test as well. She ran heroin test, and when it came back, my fasting blood sugar level was shooting to the roof. So they put me on metformin, and when I do talk about my PCOS, you will understand that I am actually insulin resistant with my PCOS. But she ran her own test, so she's looking at all these results, and I'm sitting next to her, and she's saying, "Oh my God, Olive." So she starts to go through all the different symptoms of endometriosis and polycystic ovarian syndrome with me, and I'm like, yes, oh my God. And she said, "Have you heard of PCOS or endometriosis?" I was like, "What?" And then she says, "Endometriosis." I'm like, "What is that?" Because I've never heard about it. And then she starts to go on to talk to me about it, and she says, "Bring your phone," and then she puts the website on there for me, and she said, "I need you to read about endometriosis, read about adenomyosis, read about polycystic ovarian syndrome, and this is the procedure that that's going to need to be done, and this is what's going to happen." So she explained it all to me, and she also gave me further readings to do. So I was like, what? I never knew, honestly. That was the first time. I'm a registered nurse, but that was the first time I was hearing about endometriosis or polycystic ovarian syndrome. So fast forward to today, I did go ahead to have the surgery, which was successful, and yes, there was definitely what's it called, endometrial tissues there, because she could see it on my results. She was like, "These looks like they are endometrial tissues that are outside of your cervix," because sometimes you can see it, but if you can't see it in scans and things, then surgery is the only way. But in my case, she was able to see it even before surgery, and when I did go on to have surgery, definitely it was there together with polyps and things. So anyway, the surgery was okay. It was successful. So I have been home now. So this is the 7th week post surgery, and I'm heading back to work tomorrow. I feel okay. I feel good. At the moment, because there's currently no cure for endometriosis, just your lifestyle changes, so that, like your diets and exercises, and and sometimes they'll put you on like pills, like hormonal pills as well, to help. So since I got diagnosed with this, that's what I've been trying to do, just change in my diet and exercises. So yeah, guys, so that's it from me for today. So that is my endometriosis story. I would love to hear from you, to know what your endometriosis story is. If you have one, this is a community that we're trying to build here. So please, if you've made it to this far of the video and you still haven't subscribed yet, I will encourage you to hit the subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell, just so you're notified every single week when I do post videos. Okay, and I'll definitely love to hear from you. So leave a comment in the comment section below. Alrighty, so that's it from me for today, and until next time, stay safe and be kind.